So what I love about this first recipe that we'll start off is that it's gluten-free and we're using maple syrup to sweeten it up. So if you make it for a gathering, rest assured it will be gone. So I really like that about desserts. I'm also really grateful that we have Violet helping us out. She has been incredible for setting things up, so thanks, Violet. But let's get started. So our first recipe, as you can see, is the pistachio cardamom cake bites. So we'll start off with the cake. We will mix up the ingredients. We'll talk about the frosting, and the best part is you'll all get to taste it at the end. So excited. Just those expressions when you try a new dessert and somebody tastes it, it's like, oh, tastes good. Oh my God. When I make vegan cookies for work, I don't even tell my colleagues it's vegan. I'm like, hey, I just made cookies. They're like, wow, this is so good. I'm like, yeah, it's vegan. They're like, what? Vegan? And it tastes so good. So some of you may be pleasantly surprised, but let's get started. So as you can see, we'll start off with some oat flour. And this, you don't have to go to the store and buy oat flour. If you have oats in your pantry, we can just grind them up, and that's your simple oat flour. This is just a packet of what I get from Trader Joe's, but I know whatever grocery you shop at, you'll have different options. No problems at all. To that, we'll add gluten-free flour. This is a gluten-free flour blend. Most of these flours have binding ingredients like xanthan gum or psyllium husk, and those ingredients can be really expensive too. So just buying a blend, and you can put it in your pancakes, however else you like. So we'll add that. We have some pistachios, and again, just in a simple grinder, coffee grinder, NutriBullet, whatever you have, you can just grind them up. And the next ingredient is cardamom. So I want to talk a little bit about cardamom. Have any of us either used cardamom or have it on hand in our pantry? Okay, that's quite good. That's a good kind of sample size. So cardamom is an Indian spice. It's almost a seed. And it's funny because the more research I do into Indian spices, the more I learn about their medicinal properties. So I'm sure you've all had golden milk or golden milk latte or seen it in Starbucks or these coffee shops. And that came from turmeric, which is also a medicinal spice. So with cardamom, it reduces blood pressure. A lot of folks use it as a mouth refresher like mint. But it gives it, the cake and anything you use, a really nice, sweet kind of dimension. So here you could put it in like tea or chai tea, or even if you're having like herbal tea, just a pinch of cardamom will just bring it to life. So we have cardamom and cloves, just a pinch. All right, so let's give this a good whisk. We've added our salt and baking powder. Give our dry ingredients just a whisk. Now, when it comes to our wet ingredients, we're using coconut yogurt. So I use a brand called So Delicious. And I use it in like my overnight oats or sometimes just with some granola, and I find that it doesn't, it just makes me feel really good afterwards. So we'll add some of that. And for the sweetener, we have maple syrup. Love maple syrup, oh my God. Put it in everything. What's also interesting about this kind of sweetener is that it has a low glycemic index. And I see some of you nodding. What that means is when you, unlike white sugar or brown sugar, having a sweetener like agave or maple syrup or even dates, it doesn't spike up your blood sugar. So just the way it doesn't spike up, it also doesn't crash it. So in terms of your energy, you will feel quite centered, quite stable, quite calm. All right, so we've just given that a mix. You can see my bowl, right? Perfect. To this, we'll add just a touch of almond milk. It can be any kind of plant-based milk, really. So unlike other cake batters, this will not have a runny texture. Yes?
What did you say about that? Did you say plant-based milk?
Yes. So she was asking about plant-based milk? Yes.
What does ice milk versus
Yeah, that's a great question. So when you look at the milk aisle in the supermarket, you have your you have the regular dairy, so that's cow's milk. And when some of us who are thinking of adopting a plant-based diet, there are milks that are made with almond milk, like almonds or coconut or rice. So what we'll do is, for this recipe, we have a muffin pan. Our oven's probably right now preheated to 350. I use this mini muffin pan. I've noticed that with cakes, when I cut a huge slice, and I don't know if this is just my friends, nobody wants a huge slice of cake anymore. Everybody's like, no, I don't want it. So I have decided that we're probably going to switch to these mini muffin pans, and I see some of you nodding, which is great. So when you see the bites, it's literally like a bite size. So if it's with tea, if it's at work, if it's for your holiday party at the table, just pick it up and eat it, and you can go for another one if you like, but it's not as heavy as or daunting as a huge cake slice. So I just used a mini ice cream scoop, so 1 tablespoon of the batter. So you'll grease it again with whatever you have on hand. We'll put 1 tablespoon of this in, and it bakes for about 11 to 15 minutes per the recipe. Some of you who might have baked, just put a toothpick in. If it comes out clean, you're good. The hardest part, though, with baking is resisting the temptation to eat it right out of the oven. So you will have to let it cool for at least 10 to 12 minutes before you go in. So that's the hardest part for me. Here is what our cake bites will look like. So as you can see, this is what the bite size will look like. It's literally like a coin. So it's very easy to consume. And now that we have our cakes ready, we will go on to the frosting. I also didn't fill it up all the way because ingredients like cardamom and pistachio are quite rich. So if I were to have filled it up and almost like layered it and have had 2 of them, it can be a little rich. I don't know what other word to use for it. I think it's easier to consume when it's like in a smaller bite. And then if your friends or your colleagues or your family members like it, they can go for another one. So I haven't filled it up all the way, just like 1 tablespoon. So for the frosting, again, it's super, super simple. As you can see, it's on the right-hand side of your page. I'm using a standard blender. So for the frosting, again, use any blender, NutriBullet. We used a coffee grinder last time. They all work just fine. So we'll add in our almond milk first. Again, any choice of milk. And we have here cashews. So we want to get unsalted cashews. Of course, you don't want a salty dressing. So we'll just put the cashews in. And we're sweetening it, again, by my favorite, maple syrup. So to that, we've added, you can add another pinch of cardamom if you have it. And then this is what brings the frosting to life. It's rose essence. It's like vanilla essence, but it's rose, which is great. So Arlene mentioned that I grew up in Dubai, and a lot of Middle Eastern spices and flavors have found its way in what I cook or bake. So ingredients like rose and za'atar and tahini, these are very native to the Middle East region. And I thought it might be nice to kind of switch things up. So I'm using rose essence. I'm sure you can get these in an ethnic supermarket or maybe the Whole Foods aisle as well. If you don't have rose essence, you can use vanilla, almond, peppermint. Options are endless. So I'll add a couple of drops of that. And that's about it. So we will grind this till it's smooth. The thing about any kind of nuts when you grind them is that we don't want a grainy texture, because then when you eat it, it's not as smooth on your palate and it's not the best tasting experience. So this is pretty loud actually, so I've already done this in advance. So this is what your frosting will look like. It's really smooth, it's really creamy, it's rich with the cashews. And now we'll go ahead and assemble. We have our cake bite here. By the time we make the frosting, these are probably cooled and they're good to work with. And we have our frosting ready. So just to make things a little bit easier, I put them in a piping bag. The frosting is a little runny, because it's so rich, we don't want to use, those flour tips. There'll be a lot of frosting. It'll almost overpower the flavor of the cake. So, okay. So everyone can still see what we're doing. That's great. So we'll just take the frosting, and you can use as little or as much as you like. When I make these, I just put a bowl of frosting out. People love to take some extras, so feel free to do that. To garnish it, we're going to use some of our leftover chopped pistachios. So just that it looks a little pretty. Because we've used rose, we can also get edible rose from a supermarket. And again, that just increases the exotic appeal of it. But for today, we'll just go ahead and add some. All right. And when the other rose kind of falls on your plate, it just enhances your presentation, even on a simple white platter. The last thing to finish this up is edible gold, or a gold leaf. So has anybody used that before? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, awesome, 5, great. I have my team here. So this is the latest food trend in dessert. If you look on Instagram and you see holiday desserts, it's everything. Cakes are covered with gold, and it just increases, again, the wow appeal of your dessert. It does not have flavor, it just looks really pretty on your holiday table. This is what it looks like, the packet. The good thing with these is you'll have plenty of sheets of gold. Let me show you what this looks like. All right, do you see that? Let's open a sheet up. That's what it looks like. It's really delicate, really sweet to work with. And you can put them on cakes. So you can use a brush, you can use clean hands. I'm just gonna use my fingers. So I'll keep this out here, again, for you to view. But here we are with our pistachio cake and cashew frosting. So I'm gonna keep it right here. Wow, this is such a great audience. Yes. You should clap for yourselves for the attention.